Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing very well. So we've got a new buyer guide slash review today, the DCS module, the F-5E Tiger 2. Now, as promised, I'm going to do my best at doing an unbiased, honest review of this. Now this doesn't help because this is my all-time favourite module in DCS world, and I guess it's my favourite because it suits me the best. It's absolutely fly by the seat of your pants. There's some basic stability systems in there, but no type of fly-by-wire telling me what to do. And the weapons are very nice, clear and simple. Cockpit, nice, clear and simple, and it just suits me down to the ground. But I've got to do this review in a structured and uniform way, so these are the ways that we're going to do the review. We're going to look at first one, capability, and we're going to look at the weapons, the sensors and the navigation. 2, it's kinetic performance. This may interest some of you, it may not interest some of you, but we're going to look at that compared with the other contemporary jets in DCS. Then we're going to look at 3, graphics inside of the cockpit and outside of the aircraft. We're going to rate that between 1 and 5, 1 being terrible, 5 being beautiful. And sound effects, the same thing, inside cockpit sounds and exterior sounds, 1 to 5. Then number 5, interactivity and detail, rated from 1 to 5. So this is the ability to interact with the aircraft by pushing buttons, knobs, and the detail is what do those knobs do? How realistic is the function that they do? How well modeled is it in terms of its interactivity? We'll rate that 1 to 5. Then we're going to look at the flight model, rate that one by 1 to 5. We're not really looking at how realistic the flight model is because no one who flies DCS, or practically none, have ever flown an F-5E in real life, but we're looking at how well it makes us feel, how it immerses us to make us feel like we are driving a Tiger 2, as well as that any problems the flight model may have. 7, the difficulty. Is it an easy thing to fly like an A10A? Is it a hard thing to fly like an A10C that needs lots of research and study? I'll rate that 1 to 5, 1 being easy, 5 being hard. Easy and hard are neither good nor bad. I'm just letting you know roughly empirically where this jet lies. And for all of those from 3 to 7, all of those ones that I can rate between 1 and 5, I will record them on a data sheet that I will link in the description of this video. And as well as it shows my scores, what I put down, and be aware that they may change over time. As I do more tutorials, I may refine, how I judge things. So they may change on the spreadsheet. As well as that, I'll put the other Grim Reapers, what their opinions are as well, so you can compare all our different opinions. And finally 8, we're going to look at the history of the aircraft. Has it had a troubled history since it's been released, or has it been smooth and relatively bug-free? And that's it. So let's start with capability and let's jump into DCS. So the Tiger 2 is a lightweight, affordable fighter slash attack plane. So its capabilities in air-to-air or air-to-ground are limited. If we go to the weapons loadout, we've got 7 pylons total. Outer pylons are for air-to-air missiles or smoke pods only, whereas pylons 2 through to 6 can be used for air-to-ground ordnance or fuel tanks. So if we look at the air-to-air first, we have here, it's a Sidewinder. I've got an AIM-9 Papa, AIM-9 Papa P5, a CAP M and a GAR-8. It's a training missile. That's a very early Sidewinder, pretty awful Sidewinder. That's a single aspect, relatively old Sidewinder, and this is the most modern Sidewinder we've got here, the P5. It is all aspects, so it's not too bad, but it's nothing like a Mike or an X that you might find in an F-15 or an F-18 or an F-14. But it's enough to handle itself in close quarters. Now note that we do have technically an air-to-air and attack radar, but we don't have any air-to-air radar guided missiles to use on our version of the F5, the export version. Next we'll look at the air to ground. So if we go to pylons 2, the outer air to ground pylons, we've got BDUs. These are different types of training bombs, including laser guided. Then we've got the live bombs. We've got the CBU 52B, it's a cluster munition. We've got the GBU 12, that's a 500-pound laser guided bomb, so we can drop laser guided precision munitions, up to I think 4 of them on this aircraft, but we cannot laze the target ourselves. We have to be buddy lazed from a JTAC vehicle or an A10C or whatever. An M117, an old style high explosive bomb, a new style Mark 82 slick 500-pound bomb, a retarded Mark 82 500-pound Snake Eye, and we have a series of illumination munitions. Let me just go to pylon 3, make sure we can't have any extra. No, it's in pylon 3, at the closest to the ring route. It's similar, but we also get a Mark 83, which is 1,000-pound bomb. In the middle pylon, if I go to bombs, we can have 5 times Mark 82s, which is actually quite a lot for such a small airframe, or 5 Mark 82 Snake Eyes, and we can ripple them or send them off separately depending on how we want to bomb. And because it's the stronger pylon, the stronger mount, we can have a Mark 84 2,000-pound bomb, which is actually really good. Bear in mind something like a Harrier, which is a much bigger plane, can't even carry a Mark 84. Then we've got some rockets that we can take as well. Now all of these rockets are the 2.75 inch. We've got a LAO-3 launcher that have 19 rockets per launcher, or a LAO-68 with 7 rockets per launcher, and they come in the warheads of high explosive, Willy Pete White Phosphorus, high explosive anti-tank, Willy Pete different warhead, Willy Pete different warhead, got an FR Willy Pete, we've got an FR HE, got an FR high explosive anti-tank. In the LAO-68 we've got some additions of a parachute illumination and a practice smoke and some other practice, and the smoke is actually bloody useful. One of the best things this is useful for is finding targets, smoking them for the A-10s. And we've got LAO-68s with the FRs down here, so a good assortment of rockets. Only bad thing is you can only carry 4 pods of rockets total, but again it's a small plane. We've got pods, we've got a travel pod which is not that much use unless you want to take your lunch. Fuel tanks, we've got some lovely big fuel tanks we can take on this, 275 gallons, which for such a small aircraft is quite a lot, and we can have up to 3 of them, one there and one there. We have an internal gun, can't really tell you much about it here because I haven't got any information here, but I believe it's a twin-barreled 20mm chain gun of sorts. Cannon, you can see there, in the front of the nose, and it's actually quite effective. I mean, it's nothing compared to an M61 on a modern contemporary large fighter, but it's not too bad. So let's talk about the deployment of these weapons. Now, it is pretty simple. It's basically manual aiming only. If I want to drop a bomb, I've got no complicated weapon control system like I've got in a Harrier, in a Viggen, in an F-18, in an F-14, and whatever. I basically, essentially, aim it more or less by eye with a depressible pipper. We've got a pipper here. We can set it up for whatever weapon we want to use. We can depress it here according to an appropriate amount for a particular weapon we're using, at a certain dive angle that we're using, at a certain speed that we're going. So that's how you have to do the attack, and it's very difficult. It requires lots of practice, lots of training to actually be able to hit things with bombs in an aircraft like this. Of course, in future more expensive vehicles, the weapon control systems were added where you have ideas such as CCRP, those types of things for dropping bombs. But back in here, it's just very simple, depressible pipper operation. As for the rockets, exactly the same. No CCIP, no fancy aiming systems. It's just you depress this to what you want for the rockets. You set yourself up in the dive at the correct speed, at the correct angle. You put the pipper on the target and you pull the trigger. Sounds easy, it's not. It's a very difficult thing to do. It takes lots of training. In terms of gun, for air to ground, same thing. Depressible pipper and aiming essentially by eye and using the traces of the bullets. Air to air, we go a bit forward. We do have an air to air engagement radar on this. You can see the B-scope screen here, and let me just turn it on. And it's okay. It's a short range radar. It's really for dogfights. It can search and track targets at a relatively long range of up to about 20 miles and see targets nearly up to 40 miles. Where it comes into its own is in dogfights. So if I want to use my cannon, I could aim by eye just by using the non-moving pipper here, or I could use the radar here to essentially lock onto a target in front of me, and it will give me firing information, guidance information, and help me with my firing, compute lead, compute aim, compute dip, and stuff like that. And it's a pretty good system. Again, not really a touch on the more modern, bigger fighters, but it is at least a half-decent guidance system. Now for missiles, they are IR-guided missiles. There is essentially 2 main ways of firing. There's one, we can fire just using the missile without the radar. In that case, what we would do is we would get an aircraft maneuver, so an aircraft's in our bore sight here, wait for the tone of the missile and fire. And we can use that in a cage or a non-cage fashion in regards to the swivel gimbal on the front of the sensor. And in that case, all ranging information will have to be guesswork or by pilot experience. But the other way I could do it is via radar. Now the radar cannot guide the missile. What it can do is tell me my ranging to a target. I could lock a target, for instance, BVR, beyond visual range, about 20 miles or closer using our radar here, and that can give me ranging information about when I can fire my IR guided missile. I'll still need to get a traditional lock with our bore sight, cage or non-cage here, but at least it gives us that extra option. Regards to the radar itself, it's pretty simple. and to be honest, it's hardly the best radar in the world. It's cheap, but it does its job as a low-range search radar and a low-range track radar, and for inside dogfights, it is pretty reliable and pretty good. We don't have a HUD, obviously. We have a gun sight. We can manipulate it with these guys here. It gives us the absolute bare information we need to shoot, and including a bit of ranging, but that's about it. Other sensors, we have an RWR here. It's a very good RWR. It's a bit quirky because we're either on search or non-search, which is a little frustrating if you're used to the more modern versions. But it is a decent modern system that gives you plenty of data in terms of the kind of radars that are around you. It gives you a relatively decent tactical awareness. Radio, simple radio, UHF I think in the real aircraft. In DCS it allows you to go VHF as well. It'd be very hard to do anything without VHF in here. Easy to use, big buttons. Another great reason why I like this. Big, simple buttons. Can't do it wrong when you're in the middle of it. You know, if you're maneuvering around, you need things easy to click. Very easy to use, simply laid out and easy to use. We've got a TACAN, we'll go into navigation next, I suppose. Navigation, very limited navigation. No inertial guidance system, no GPS, no Doppler system. It's just basic TACAN, which allows you to get home. That's pretty much all it does, or get to another friendly airbase. And we have an ADF set here. Forgive me, I haven't used it in a while. We do have it here somewhere. Oh, can't find it and I'm looking for it, but it's here. And that would just, again, allow us to get back to a friendly base as long as we're within range, radio scope, or to another friendly base. But there's no actual, despite the word TACAN, tactical air navigation, there's no real tactical navigation in this. There's no way to put waypoints in. There's no way to find to a target. It's all done old school by your HSI here, and what I'd call old school navigation using maps and things. I think that's all I want to say about this here. It's got a parachute, so we can do short takeoff. So we can do a relatively short landing. It's got, and this aircraft has to land quite fast as well. That's just how it was designed. It's got a hook as well. We can put a hook down, and you can even actually land on an aircraft carrier with that hook if you want, but I wouldn't advise it. And that's about it for capability. Next, we'll go on to graphics, visuals. So we'll start inside. I'm going to zoom in like this and just let you guys look around and see what you think. I would describe it as average. It's not terrible. It's not great. I've just did, the last review I did was the Vigan, and the Vigan's really, really good. And so it really sets the bar high. This module is what, between 2.5 and 3 years now. It's starting to show its age a bit in terms of graphics, but you know, that's how it is with all of the modules. Eventually it will be upgraded, but it will be a good few years yet, I imagine. You see, you can just start seeing the little breakup of textures here. It's just not the best quality. It's good, you know, you fly in here. It's perfectly immersive to fly in here. There's nothing really bad of it. Again, a little bit of a breakup of texture there. Shadows are all there. I'll just keep looking around. Again, you know, it's not that convincing when you compare it to one of the more modern models, the bigger models. Okay, so inside, I'm going to guess that's a 3 out of 5? Just average, not particularly bad, it's not particularly good. Let's go and have a look outside. Relatively highly modelled front system here, front gear. Outside, I think I'd rate that 3.5. So it's going to give us a combined for the graphics of 3.25, which I think is about right. Bearing in mind we've got the super planes coming out, we've got the F-14, we've got the F-18 with really detailed graphics now. It's just starting to show its age a little bit. Next we have the sound effects, and the sound effects are very important for us for reasons I've explained in the other reviews I've done. We rely on the sounds here to tell us things that the real pilots will be able to feel, the vibrations the pilots can feel, the vibrations of the engines, the vibrations of the airframes, the various G loadings, lateral G loadings, longitudinal G loadings, vertical G loadings. We don't get any of that. All we get is a little screen, a video monitor, and we get the sound. And all of that has to replace what the pilot can feel, what the real pilot can feel. So I want sounds that tell me exactly what the engines are doing at all times. Even if it's not perfectly realistic, I need that. I need to be able to hear when the airframe is stressed. I need to be able to hear when the pilot is stressed. And that's how it's going to convey to me what the aircraft is doing and the stresses that it's under. There are a lot of aircraft that don't do that very well. We're probably going to find out with this aircraft, but we'll see. And that's inside, but also outside as well. So for inside here, I don't like the sounds inside. They're too quiet. I've had to pump them right up for this tutorial. And I always have to pump them up in the videos that I make for the F5. And I don't like it because I struggle to hear when the afterburner's going on. So, see if you can spot when the afterburner's going on. See, almost no extra sound there. I'll do a full run in a minute. Unless they've changed it, I don't think you can hear when the afterburner's on. And what I like and what I need is a nice thwomp. The real pilot in here gets a nice kick in the back when the afterburner comes on, and I need something telling me the afterburner's on. And I know there's gauges down here, but in a dogfight you don't get to see that. So something like an F-15, something like an F-14, something like a Viggen needs that feedback from the sound system, and it's just not good enough in here. As well as that, I don't love the sound. It's too wishy-washy, it's too hissy, it's not grunty enough. I'd like it to sound much more grunty, more Viggen-y. Apart from the F-18, I don't think any of these internal sounds are very realistic as far as I'm aware, but to be honest, scratch realism, like I said, I needed to hear the different things that I need to hear. Outside, I really like it. I think it's a real belter outside. Really good sound of the afterburner there. Can't hear their afterburner from the front for some reason. Okay, let's get rolling, shall we? Listen to these sounds as we go. Lovely loud sounds. Okay, off we go. Nice bit of ground rumbling so you can hear when it's on the ground again. That's something we need. Something a pilot can feel but we can't feel. Now, I just can't hear the afterburners on. Do you know what I'm saying? So if I... So the afterburners are off there. Sorry about the beeping. Just have to get rid of that beeping. So that's it with no afterburners. That's it with burners. You know, that information I need to be told about. So that's something that I would like to see changed. Next is the high G. I've got to see this aircraft giving me feedback about the stresses of the jet. So if we look at our alpha and our G down there, I want to see sounds telling me what those G's are, because I haven't got time in a dogfight to look down here. Neither has a real pilot. So, but he can feel it. He doesn't need to. I can't feel it. Just get myself up to speed. Not the fastest plane in the world. What we've got is a good early onset of the man breathing. I'd really like to hear more of the airframe though. And I load it up more. I'm not hearing anything from the airframe yet. Let's give it some more alpha. We will just got to get my energy back. There, you can hear that rumbling. Heard that rumbling as I'm start to load the alpha up. This is what's missing in a lot of planes. The Harrier doesn't seem to have it. The Viggen Rid doesn't really seem to have it. I need that rumbling. So try and listen again. Watch the angle of attack, the AOA, on the bottom there, and listen to when the rumbling starts. I need that information. Did you hear it? I hope you could hear it. It's very subtle, don't get me wrong, it's subtle, but it's there. And it allows me to tell... Shut up. It allows me to tell exactly what the plane's doing. It allows me to tell how much Alpha I've got loaded and how much G I've got loaded. And for any kind of dogfight, which is what you mainly do in this aircraft, it's absolutely essential it conveys that to you. So that's good. If only they added the afterburner sound, I'd be super happy. As for the outside sound speed, it's pretty good. Pretty happy with it. They've changed the sound recently. It's got a lovely crunchy afterburner now. Watch this. Mill power, now afterburner. Yeah, that crunch. They've upgraded the sounds. It's great. Don't get me wrong. It's actually louder and crunchier than a lot of the big fighters now. You know, some of the F-14 and stuff like that. So the only slight problem for video makers like me now is I get an F-14, which the sounds are just completely appalling at the moment, and that rolls down the runway, and then a little tiny little Tiger comes past it, and sound is like twice as loud and twice as manly. So needs a bit of rebalancing there, but it's really good at the F5. Good sounds all round, apart from the missing afterburners. I haven't really got any objections. Oh, one thing I just remembered to add, it's important that they give us sound effects, even if they're unrealistic, for when we're firing our weapons. And this does have lovely, big, fancy, unrealistic sound effects when I fire my missiles. You have to have that. You absolutely need it because, again, in a real aircraft, you can feel when his missiles left the wingtip. We can't feel that. We need to know by a sound, a thump, that the missile has gone, or the bomb's gone, or the rockets have gone. Shh, shh, that kind of sound. You know, it's just something we have to have, and this has it in bundles, so that's perfect. Even the bombs, even when the bombs go gajuju, gajuju, they make this kind of sound that we absolutely must have, and the planes that make it super realistic by not having that sound, it's just, to be honest, a massive pain in the butt and pisses people off. Okay, so I've got to give it a rating. It's not a 5 because it's certainly not perfect. When we go and look at the Hornet, we'll see an even more advanced kind of sound system. So I can't give it a 5. And in cockpit, it's too quiet and there's no afterburner sound. But all round, it's modelled pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm going to go with, I think I'll give it a 4 at the moment. I may change my mind later on, but we'll go with a 4. Okay, for the next thing, we need to go and land. Okay, interactivity and detail. So what we mean here is how, when I interact with the cockpit by moving my mouse around and clicking buttons, how much of it is modelled. How, when you click those buttons, does it feel like you're clicking a real button? How satisfying is it to do that? And when I press those buttons and those switches, what kind of effect do I get? And to be honest, I wasn't really expecting very much from this. I was expecting it to be, I mean, for instance, I just did a Viggen, and the Viggen I thought was going to be excellent, but it didn't turn out. It turns out there's quite a few buttons and stuff that they just didn't bother with. Now this, I just had a quick look round. I can't actually find anything that's not modelled. Even these bloody little vent things. All the circuit breakers. Whether they actually do what they're supposed to do, I don't know. I doubt it. But you can click it with your hand. It makes you feel good. Everything. I've not found anything that doesn't do something and have the, you know, the effect. Got to be something that's not in here. Even these circuit breakers down here, look. I really wasn't expecting it to be this good, to be honest. Most of these buttons I've never pushed, as you probably never will, but everything here, look. I mean, in terms of interactivity in this way, in terms of what we've got here, this has beaten the Viggen by a long shot, so, you know, I mean, find something that doesn't work. All of this stuff works. Tested all this stuff. I know all this stuff works. All the TACAN works. Oh my god! How to give myself a friggin' heart attack? Why did I do that? Look, even these little things. All the fuel system works. Electrics all works. Look, this stuff isn't in the game. IFF isn't in the game per se. You know, it's not modelled accurately. And look, you can even do all the dials and things. Again, something like the Vegan, which we think as really detailed, hasn't got that stuff. Light there. Everything here. Everything here. Look at warning tests. Even this little circuit breaker's back here, look. So, that is... I've got no choice, really, but to give it a 5 out of 5. Of all planes, I was not expecting this to be a 5 out of 5, but, you know, tell me where they've gone wrong in terms of interactivity. Find anything that doesn't work. All this works. I've done plenty of tutorials on it. Well, not much else to say there. The mirrors... Oh, I've blown the mirrors off, haven't I? In terms of detail, I've not found any function. There's like 2 functions, I think, that don't work on this. But they are understandable why they don't work, because the things aren't relevant per se in DCS. What else can I say? We can even do this, look. Most people don't know that's there. Oh, I found something! That, whatever that is, doesn't click. Wow, amazing. So, radar's perfectly detailed. I've never, you know, well, the radar looks crap. You know, don't get me wrong, it looks crap compared with the Vigam. This section of interactivity and detail doesn't cover whether it looks good or not, as long as this does look like the real one, and I'm absolutely certain it does look like the real one, you know, the real F-5E radar scope, so we can't mark it down for that. So, I mean, let me know if you think I'm wrong, but empirically I can't really find anything wrong there, so I have to give it 5 for interactivity and the detail. I mean the detail of function. I don't mean the detail of how detailed are the textures. I mean the detail of what it does when you mess around with the RWR and whatnot. So let me know your thoughts on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the right thing to do. Okay, next is the flight model, so we'll need to get a new jet. So as we briefly spoke about before, we're not talking about how real it feels compared to an F5, because in many ways, within reason, that doesn't matter. None of us are going to ever compare it to an F5. What really matters is that it's immersive enough to make us feel like we're driving a real F-5E based on, you know, known empirical facts about its engines, its speed, its wing area, stuff like that. And so I really want the feel, and also I want to make sure it doesn't have any obvious errors. Those are the things I want in my flight model. So I fly all of the aeroplanes, and I'm a pretty experienced simmer now. One of the reasons this is my favourite plane is the flight model. It's superb, and this is one of the I think this is made by ED, isn't it? This is one of the many ED modules, almost all of them. I really like, not because of their graphics. They don't have particularly good graphics, they don't have particularly good sound, but the flight models are beautiful, really good flight models. This one is pure flying. It allows me to, it's kind of hard to quantify and explain to you what I mean, but I can feel this thing moving through the air. When the air is turbulent or whatever, I can feel the difference it makes by the way the jet moves compared to my joystick. A lot of those planes out there, they don't have that. And so it's what I call as close as we can get to pure flying, more or less. I mean, technically the warbirds are, but they're a bit more violent, to be honest. This is relaxed and pure flying. It'll do exactly what I wanted to do. If I want to over G and G out, I'll bloody do it. If I want to crash into the sea, no one's going to warn me not to. I'll just go and do it. And like a typical ED module, it feels smooth and good. I need that smoothness. It doesn't jump around like the bloody F-14 heat blur stuff. It's there might be a little vibration. Let's see if we can get a bit of vibration. Now, I'm not saying it shouldn't have vibration. I don't think. I mean, a lot of the ED modules don't have any vibration. I do like a little bit of vibration. The Vegan, good amount of vibration. It tells me that I'm over alphaing. This, there doesn't appear to be any vibration at all. Luckily, I've got that sound in the background you can hear, so that's okay. But a little bit of vibration I'll be happy with. I'm not going to mark it down for that though. That's just how the different developers tune their models. It really is a joy to fly. I could sit here and fly all day if I wanted. highly manoeuvrable plane. I'm not marking for manoeuvrability, obviously, but I'm just saying it is a highly manoeuvrable plane. You see a bit of juddering there. I got my alpha so high, I am getting juddering there, look. Don't know why it's doing that. I guess it's just the alpha's quite high. So I am getting some vibration there, so I take that back. It just needed to be in the right parameters. So that's good as well. It's just good. It's well balanced. Some modules are just too far to one side, for some reason too far to the other side. This is right in the middle. Always feels beautiful. That said, there are some dangers. It is a very bad aircraft for pulling out of vertical maneuvers. So if I go down like this, whenever you fly an F5 and you've flown it for a bit, you'll soon learn you can't do this. You can't go down, do a low-level loop, low-level split S, where other aircraft could. This, it just won't work. Now, I was very high there, so I didn't have a problem. But as soon as you do that close to the ground, in an F5, you very rarely come out of it alive, compared to other aircraft, which are much more forgiving. Why is that? No idea. Is it realistic? No idea. It's just a foible you need to be careful of. And again, if we're being, if we're being attacked by an F5, first thing I do, into a dive, force him into a dive, guarantee if he's not a experienced pilot will just crash because of that foible. I won't mark it down because of that. It's just something you've got to be wary of. The G-lock is good. It's progressive. It doesn't just suddenly G out like a bloody Vigan or sometimes an F-14. So it's nice. It gives you plenty of warning for that, which is needed. That said, it doesn't go really as fast as the Vigan down here, so I guess you could argue that, but that's my analysis of it. Landing, ground interaction, all feels very good. The wheels touch and feel very good. They plant well, slides well. If it's wet, the aircraft will slide. You've got to avoid that. It's good fun. Damage model, I mean, all of the aircraft that are currently in DCS have, to be honest, just a good damage model. I know some of them are quite finished, but the ones that are in there finished, they're all good damage models, so I haven't really seen any need to put that into these reviews that I'm doing. You might as well assume any modern, once it's relatively finished, aircraft in DCS will have a decent damage model. Well, as that, and another, like all of the really good modules in DCS, I can really feel the weight of this aircraft. If I put extra fuel in it, if I put bombs in it, whatever the magic they do behind the scenes, I can feel that in the way she reacts. I can feel the extra momentum, the extra, the physics of the aircraft. And some of the aircraft, you just don't feel that as much or very well. So for those reasons, it's also really good. Okay, that's all I want to talk about in the flight model. I can't really find any negatives, to be honest, so I'll sign on to the next thing. The next is difficulty. Difficulty, another reason why I like this. So I've got all of the modules, over 30 of the modules, and I get to fly maybe 3, maybe 4 sorties a week if I'm lucky. So that means the reality is I only get to fly one aircraft once a month. Sometimes I might get to fly an aircraft twice a month, but that's about it. And that means for me, a lot of you, not all of you, but a lot of you as well, we just don't have the time for complicated aircraft, and it makes them difficult and unrewarding to fly. So this plane, a plane like this, which is noob friendly, it's really noob friendly. I want to fire a missile, bang, bang, pull the button. Sorry, I went the wrong way there, but you know what I mean. That's it. I want to drop some bombs. Actually, I'm not going to do that now because this is going to turn into a tutorial. But it's simple. You learn it once, you watch the tutorial, quick tutorial, that's it. You never have to remind yourself again. It's really easy. Everything is compartmentized into its little compartments as you'd expect. And they're all easy. They're easy to find. They're easy to learn. That means you don't have to worry when it's in the stress of combat. Oh, which switch is it? What am I pressing? Is this the right menu in the database to the right of the other database? Just simple switches. Keep it simple. And it makes it fun. It makes it fun. Again, if you're one of the guys that can sit down and study the A10C manual, 400 pages 3 times in a row and remember all that shit, great, good for you. But a lot of people just simply don't have that chance. And so flying an A10C, for me or someone else, is very unrewarding. So as well as the flight model, the way the flight model works, that's the other reason, one of the other reasons why it's my favourite aeroplane. I can jump in it after 6 months of not flying it, quickly look at the buttons, bosh, we're off into a dogfight. Great, and it's realistic. Nothing in here is cheating. It's all as the real F5 is. So it's technically still a study level sim, but it's just a simple aircraft. So for a rating, I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5 for difficulty. 1 being the easiest. It's not the easiest. The easiest is obviously give it a Flaming Cliffs 3 plane, but it's probably the easiest of the high fidelity aircraft. Let me know if you disagree with that, but to me, it's a super easy plane. If I have to go back and change that at some point, I will. But we're going to say 2 for now. And I insist you buy it as your first high fidelity aircraft. I insist you start with FC3 if you're not already a simmer. If you are a simmer, then go to this and you'll be absolutely chuffed with it. You may not be effective, you may not kill tens of thousands of tanks, but you'll have a damn good time trying. The next is the history of the aircraft. It's had a pretty decent history. You could argue there's not much stuff to go wrong on it. Maybe that's true, I don't know. I don't do the programming in the background. But generally it's had a decent history compared to something like Harrier, which is just known to break down all the time. The Vigan had its problems before. It's got a rudder problem at the moment, which is a bit unlucky, for doing this video. But I'm sure that'll be fixed soon. It's had problems with these switches down here, I know. I've never really gotten to the bottom of that, and I'm not even sure if it's been fixed, but problems getting the rocket launchers and stuff to work, whether they are a programming bug or maybe a slight problem, the way people are doing it wrong. I think it's more likely to be a programming bug from what I've heard and read on the forums and stuff. As far as I'm aware, hashtag, I think that's been completed. And a couple of other small things. There was a lighting bug at one point, wasn't there? But generally, for nearly 3 years, she's had a good rap. You could always get in this plane, apart from with the rudder thing, you'd always get in this plane, have a good time. Very rarely has it been problematic in the expanse of the progression of DCS World. So in terms of history and reliability, I don't think there's anything there to warrant putting off the purchase of this aircraft. Next, as promised, we'll look at the kinetic abilities of the aircraft for just interest's sake, if nothing else. These have been thoroughly tested by me and I have videos and all to prove whatnot. So peak sustained turn rate at 50% gas, where an F-18C at 420 kTAS at 20 degrees sustainable degrees per second, and a MiG-21 is down there. We are pretty bad, to be honest. There is a big fable out there that this thing can turn well, and yes, it can turn tight because of its size and whatnot, but it's not actually a good sustained turn fighter. It's definitely not a turn fighter. It simply doesn't have the power. The physics aren't there to support it. And so you can see it has a lovely big range, but it'll only actually do 14 degrees per second in sustain. So if you're on an F5, don't get into a turn fight with a Mirage, or F-14, a MiG-29, an F-18 and whatnot. So something to be aware of. You have to utilize your energy in different ways. The instant altitude was not on there for some reason, so ignore that. Sustained altitude was also not on there. I don't know why I haven't done that, but there you go. Maximum speed at high altitude. F5 was not on there. That's annoying. It just wasn't fast enough to get on the chart, basically, or high enough to get on the chart. Low speed altitude, you got it on the chart at 684 kTAS, Mach 1.03 at sea level in ISA conditions or Grim Reaper's conditions. So that is unfortunately the slowest of the lot. But it is still technically a supersonic fighter, and it will get to A to B pretty quickly. The low altitude acceleration, oh dear, not looking good. It's terrible at accelerating. If we've got Harrier in there, I'll show you, but I mean, MiG-21, the MiG-19 is even much faster than the F-5E. So acceleration is not your bag. You can't outpower, you can't do power fighters with this, you have to be clever. High altitude acceleration, it's bad again, basically, it's at the bottom again. I'm not selling it very well here, and even, it's still my favourite fighter, or plane, even though it's the worst at everything. So that tells you a lot. Climb rate, it's the worst by an embarrassingly high amount. Okay, I wish I hadn't opened this up now. Climb rate, yes, we beat something. We beat the AV-8B for the climb rate 600 knots, but that's only because the AV-8B can't actually get to 600 knots. Otherwise, we're embarrassingly bad again. So, yeah, it's terrible at everything, but still perfect, still awesome. So, yeah, that's that. Okay, that's it. So, as a summary, cool aircraft. It's probably quite cheap because it's over nearly 3 years old now. Go and buy it. Definitely if it's your first high fidelity aircraft. If it's not, go and buy it anyway. I guarantee everyone who flies this will have an absolute gas. I guarantee all your money back, although I won't actually give you any money back because I don't make any money out of it, but you know what I mean. Nothing else to say really. Pretty sure I've made my point. I hope you enjoyed that. See you later.